Thanks, Camille. Really excited to be here today to talk about the profile of the Canadian Costco Shopper. We're going to today bring you through a couple of things. We can move to the next slide. First is about Caddle. We're going to tell you a little bit about Caddle, and then Sonia is going to walk you through the results of our customer experience tracker and how Costco is winning the pandemic. From there, we're going to talk a little bit about the profile of the Costco member and drill in a bit deeper. Before then talking about the online shopping experience and how Costco has been able to leverage Instacart to bring e-com to its member base. And all importantly, wrapping up around membership programs and some of the things that may be on the horizon when it comes to membership wars in the space. And in about 35 minutes or so, we'll be at key takeaways with some time for a Q&A at the end. So I'm really happy to be here today with Sonia to talk about Caddle and the Costco experience. And as we kind of said, we'll start off with a little bit of information about Caddle. So Caddle, if you're new to Caddle, how Caddle works is it's the largest daily and monthly active panel for consumer research in the Canadian market. Caddle brings a unique set of features to the research experience with our video, survey, receipt capture, review, and re-engage features. Allows our clientele to capture relevant insights from any challenge in the consumer journey. Unparalleled access to insights is what our founder Ransom will often say. How we do that is through our rewards-based mechanism with our panel members, where they're rewarded for actions ranging from watching videos to answering surveys to uploading pictures of receipts and a lot more. So what that translates into, if we can move to the next slide, is the largest Canadian panel in market. All driven by our daily activity rate of more than 10,000 daily active users or panelists available for you every day. Today, we're obviously going to dive into the Costco Shopper and what we've learned about that consumer segment. But we really do offer panels in every type of shopper, every type of consumer in the market, from our cannabis consumption panel or Amazon Prime members, even looking at more niche areas like vegan buyers or pop consumers, all powered by our dynamic and on-demand reporting. And if you have any questions about the webinar or the content, we'd be happy to book some time to chat with you after the event. So now on to the main event, why we're all here, to talk about Costco. And why we're going to talk about Costco is really about how much Costco has been able to benefit from the pandemic. We've seen sales rise as that boom has continued from the height of the pandemic all the way through the low points, and hopefully if we start to round towards a lowered threat of the pandemic, we continue to see reasons for growth for Costco. But before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty and I hand over to Sonia to tell you a little bit more about our CX tracker, we thought it would be fun to start with a couple of fun facts that you may or may not know about Costco. So we found out, and Sonia and I've had a ton of fun kind of really learning about Costco and going through the data. We uncovered a few things in our reading, like the fact that Costco is also a secret pizzeria and is one of the largest of America's pizza chains. Really fascinating that they've been able to bring that to the experience over the years and offer more value to their customers and their membership. The second was that aisles aren't labeled and items are constantly moved around the store on purpose. We found this really interesting in how they're able to encourage that curiosity with their members and their shoppers, and how it fits really well with their sampling programs in store, which I know is one of the things that everybody always looks forward to with a trip to Costco. And then also, you know, in terms of how they've been able to leverage against staples from the kitchen, like the price of a Costco hot dog has remained the same for more than 30 years. Really just kind of showing how strong Costco has been on establishing certain initiatives which are able to draw more consumers to the membership. Very simple things, but very effective. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sonia, who will tell you a little bit more about our customer experience tracker.
Nick. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Some interesting facts there. Okay, so now that we are talking about Costco, let's do a little bit of deep dive in on Costco. We would like to say here that Costco has been the winner all through pandemic, and this is shown clearly by this chart, which talks about the NPS, which is Net Promoter Score. How do we calculate that? We'll let you know in the coming slides. But if you see here, all throughout pandemic last year, the Costco NPS score was 73 as compared to its competitors. Move next. Okay, so NPS is the Net Promoter Score. So basically, it's a metric that we check with the consumers to check the likelihood of how much would they promote and recommend a brand, or they do not recommend a brand. So we figured out some of the key attributes, shortlisted some of the key attributes of the shopping, say for example, value for money, shopping experience, and other important attributes. And then what we do is we rank them basis various retailers, and we come to the top 3 drivers. And that's how we create the predictors and get to the Net Promoter Score. Next. Okay, so here clearly we can see that Costco has been winning on the grocery shopping experience. This chart here talks about, I would like to focus on that blue trend line at the top. 2 points to note here is not only Costco has been rated #1 for the grocery shopping experience, but it has been doing continuously. So the shopping experience is something that people rate it at the best for Costco, as well as consistency is what delivers the best shopping experience for them.
Just to add to that, we have been tracking this since last summer. So this is almost a 12 months worth of data. We've just highlighted in this chart the most recent months so you can see, but week over week, consistently for the last 12 months, Costco has ranked, if not the highest, in the top 2, with the average being the highest over the 12-month period.
Absolutely. After the shopping experience comes the value that Costco provides to its shoppers, and that precisely drives the membership. So when we ask consumer, what is the reason that you have Costco membership, and a whooping high percentage of 57% said that value is the reason that they look for the membership, followed by the product quality, deals, offers, and other other reasons. Therefore, for Costco, the shopping experience as well as the value it provides makes a lot of difference to its consumers, and hence that makes them the loyalists.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Kirkland brand there represented as well in terms of the value and how much of a draw that is from a private label perspective also.
Absolutely. Okay, so this slide can remind you of a game that we all used to play, or maybe some play, called bingo, but it is definitely not bingo. What we've done here is that we've taken out some key attributes of the customer experience, like the speed of shopping, the value for money, the brand availability, and others, and we have mapped and ranked them in one of our study on the various retailers you see here down on the x-axis, which is your Costco, Freshco, Metro. The point to note here is that Costco wins or tops the chart for, say, value for money, the speed for shopping. It fiercely does well on the brand availability, fresh food availability. The point to note here is that these differ basis the generational cohorts. For example, for a millennial, what is important is the value for price, and Costco delivers the best for them. For a baby boomer, the speed of shopping, the overall ease of shopping, and the checkout, and therefore Costco does top on this parameter. And therefore, as I said, the other parameters do really well for Costco.
Thanks, Sonia. So, to really round up there and summarize, what we found is Costco was voted top retailer for multiple factors. First off was good value, which is really the spark that brings the consumer to the store in the first place. Secondly is that shopping experience, which was unique in its ways and what it's able to offer outside of just grocery, with apparel as well as fresh, quick serve foods also available within the experience. Third, we found availability of brands was very important to the experience at Costco, and the ability to get repeat customers through the doors. But what we found most important was fresh food availability, which really ties into the importance of quality with the member base, where we saw over 70% of Costco members buying fresh produce at Costco. So really interesting when you start looking at that shopping experience and how central fresh food is to the entire experience and their growth overall.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Tanya, for the taking us through the CX data. We're going to drill down a little bit deeper now and take a look at the Costco consumer profile. So this next section will go a little bit more into detail around the demographics, as well as how they're paying, and digging a little bit more into what is in the basket. So first up, we're going to look at who the member is. So almost nearly everyone is the funny part. So 63% of Canadians are Costco members. It really has become an institution of the Canadian retail landscape. And in terms of loyalty, over 40% have been Costco members for 10 plus years. So really, really strong loyalty amongst the member base. And as we kind of see in the next slide, we'll start seeing a breakdown a little bit more of the demographics and the gender. So on this slide, you'll see that it's pretty evenly split in the member base when it comes to membership, with 50% men and 47% women as Costco members. Among generational cohorts, you're seeing a bit of a pattern around baby boomers being the largest kind of slice of the demographic pie, with 33% of Costco members falling into this demographic and 31% in the Gen X category. Millennials trailing behind a little bit with 24%. These demographic stats, indicate the importance of life milestones like first home and first children, and that Costco membership as to when you might become an active member. As we kind of covered in the previous slides, a big reason for becoming a member is value, with 50% of Costco members looking for value, while 38% look for product quality. In terms of how shoppers pay at Costco, we've seen that 29% of Costco members are visiting few times a month. In terms of payment, not a lot of change over the pandemic is what we've observed, with the use of credit cards by Costco members increasing by 2%, with debit card usage declining by about 3%. So now I'm going to hand over to Sonia, who's going to drive a little bit more in a few areas around the shopper.
Thank you, Mick. 63% of Canadians being Costco consumers is a big number. So let's do a deep dive into what are the baskets, or how is the basket of a Costco consumer looks like. 82% of that basket consists of food and beverages. 8% consists of home gardening products, and 3% apparel. Mick, I remember we were talking some time back that I was a little surprised to see apparels also in the Costco basket. Now, important point to note here is that pre-COVID, this percentage was little different. This division was little different. The food and beverages were 78%, which means during COVID, the percentage of food and beverages in a Costco consumer basket increased by 4%, and apparel declined by 3%. So yeah, that's interesting that it's led by food and beverages, the basket.
Yeah, but with still so much more to offer, I think it's really just, as we've seen, that Costco's ability to be able to execute in other categories is really second to none in terms of the growth in home gardening, apparel, QSR. Start wondering if maybe they'll open barbershops so I can get my haircut there.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows, tomorrow it will come.
Yeah,
next please. Okay, so during the pandemic now, we all know that pandemic happened, and we wanted to spend less. Here what we are trying to say is, when we ask people that during pandemic, how much has they spent on Costco by the consumer? Important point to note here is that 45% people said that they're spending the same amount. I wouldn't expect that, but that was a big percentage, that they are spending the same amount during pandemic, which speaks volumes about Costco and its loyalty. What is even more important to drive home with here is that we saw there's a net increase of 9% of the spending on Costco by the consumer during pandemic. Once we understand this dynamics of pandemic, in the next slide, we'll see how is the dynamics going to change post-pandemic. So the next slide talks about how are we going to see the change in the spend post-pandemic? And 60% consumers said that they plan to purchase the same amount even after pandemic. And what is even more important to highlight here is that the net increase we saw is 16% of increase we'll see post-pandemic by the consumers on the spend at Costco. So we see, what do you feel, Mick, here? Like, we see a good growth here. We see even during pandemic also, it even got higher. And post-pandemic also, we see like, plus 16%, which is a big percentage.
Yeah, very interesting growth. I think it really just suggests and bring points to Costco, or consumers feeling confident that Costco can serve more of their needs. As we're going to cover in the next section, the online experience has been something relatively new for Costco members. I think what we're seeing is an impact in the market that people are happy with the experience and happy to lean more heavily on Costco for their consumer needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So next slide talks about the trips that people have done and the average monthly spend. And also we'll talk about the per transaction spend. Now, we all know that, because of COVID, we sort of reduced going out, and that kind of shows in the data as well, that the number of trips to the store reduced by approximately half. So 46% was the decline that we saw in the number of trips. But at the same time, the average monthly spend increased by 34% during COVID. If earlier it was $336, now it stands approximately at $450. Even more, what is more interesting is the average spend per transaction by the consumer has increased by 41%. So these two numbers are big numbers, and they, as I said, talk about the growth of the Costco, and also talks about, as Mick, you said, that how Costco delivers the best to each and every consumer in terms of the variety of needs that they have. And during COVID, I think Costco has stood strong for the consumers, for their consumers.
Yeah, I think as we've gone through the waves of the pandemic and the pantry loading and the frozen foods explosion, which has been something that was really quite interesting, during the last 12 months, where we had people buying freezers to stock up. And, we just had a story yesterday in Strategy Magazine about the frozen food freight train, is what I call it, which is just the renaissance almost around frozen foods and what consumers are looking for in frozen food products. So if anyone want to check that out, we will be sending a link for that article also in the post webinar email. But there's just so much opportunity, as you can see, which in the market that Costco is able to plan and execute against. I think that's really one of the things we've seen, is their ability to execute and continue meeting that consumer demand and solving problems for the consumer is something that they're really unmatched in the market with in terms of innovation today.
Totally agree with you there. Data clearly speaks about that. Yes. Mm-hmm. So next we move. Okay, so I'll hand it over to Mick now to sort of summarize it and take you guys forward with some amazing, interesting insights about online space.
Yeah, thanks, Sonia. So we've, in collaboration with our optical character recognition partner for receipt reading, we were able to dive a little bit more into the receipt data to look at some of the top products bought together. So to give you a snippet, we were able to look at the top 50 items, be able to evaluate things like the top products bought together being cucumbers and bananas, berries and bananas. So very much those household staples, everyday items are what's driving the basket and driving stickiness with Costco. The healthier lifestyle is definitely something which Costco has been able to play into and bring and serve consumers with this fresh fruit produce, as well as items in the vegan category, vegetarian category, really been able to meet the needs and demands of changing consumer interests. We also saw a lot of in terms of receipts and what was showing up most frequently. Buying necessities for the home is also seen, with many cleaning products making the top 50 list also. So definitely something we'll be covering more in our detailed report, as Camille had mentioned at the top. but really fascinating stuff happening at the Costco store. So we're going to move on to look at online next. Something that's relatively new to Costco, Instacart. I think it's one of the things that often was talked about as maybe where Costco was lagging behind was the online, but as we move to the next slide, we'll see in just 12 months, they've been able to make up significant ground on the competition. So next slide. We saw that for those that are maybe not aware, Costco launched their partnership with Instacart on July 31st, 2020, so less than 12 months ago. And as per usual, Costco execution was flawless with the program available immediately. So what we saw was when we looked at the data in the past, less than 12 months, more than 1 in 4 Costco members have used Instacart. Which is really crazy when you think about we're coming from a world pre-pandemic where, share of category for grocery when it came to e-com was maybe 9–10% at best. So Costco has been able to leverage the Instacart platform and completely rocket their e-com usage from 0 to over 25% with their member base. And the kind of hits keep rolling from there. So Sonia, I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on a few of these, but I'll kind of share them out with you. We also saw that 55% of Canadians are aware of Instacart service through the app and website. Again, pretty staggering when you look at that membership base that's skewed more towards boomers, Xers, older generations, and just being able to execute and get that level of awareness with your member base that quickly is really impressive. And then as well as that 73% of consumers, when they have tried the Instacart platform, spend more on the platform than in store. That was a huge one in terms of our discussion, Sonia, pre-event, and really just kind of is one that maybe might shock people a bit in terms of spending more online than in store.
It shocked me for sure. It shocked me for sure, this number. So I totally agree with you, Mick, that within a year, not even a year, the kind of awareness we see here and the kind of future conversion that we are looking at this number, which is 57%, where people are saying that they will definitely continue to use Instacart post-pandemic. So it speaks volumes in terms of how Instacart has become one of the important platform for Costco, for consumers to buy at Costco.
For sure, yeah. I think it's really interesting just to see how Costco's been able to solve a problem there, again, with flawless execution, and have set themselves up for even more growth now.
Yeah, I think it just saw the need gap and filled there beautifully, I would say.
For sure, yeah. So I think, Instacart's another topic we find very interesting at Caddle, and something that has been growing and growing in the market. And we see more stories around how retailers are planning to, whether they're going to compete or whether they're going to join. So I think lots of conversation there around the delivery app side of things as well.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
So moving to the next slide, really kind of to pull all this together, what we found in our research so far has been what makes Costco unique is, number one, the value, which is the first and foremost, what people are converting for. It's right there in the name, Costco Wholesale. It's a very enticing offer to consumers to be able to buy, and even though it's in bulk, the value and efficiency that comes from that is something that is a huge draw to consumers. Second is the experience, which really delights the Costco member, wants them to stay, keeps them coming back, whether it's, some of them are big things, like, as we mentioned, the full service food restaurant at the front of the store. Some of them are small things, like their ability to manage large crowds, which they really stood out during the pandemic in terms of being able to, number of registers open, and how they were able to organize around that experience and deliver, a really quality experience despite the restrictions and limitations. And finally, then the quality is what brings people back to Costco over and over and over again. You're getting all the value and quality, right? All the value of a discount store, but you're getting the quality of the best products in the market. Really unique, something that keeps people coming back.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you. Like me as a Costco member, these 3 reasons are, I would say, the top 3 reasons for me that I would stick to Costco in a very loyal manner. So yeah, I think one question I have, like while we were speaking, and we just saw that, you know, with grocery, food and beverages being one of the top, you know, category product of a Costco consumer's basket, with pandemic in picture, with post-pandemic that we hopefully are reaching, and lot of dynamics changing online. Do you see Costco seeing any threat from anywhere or from anyone? Like,
Yeah.
you know, what is
What
it?
you ask, yeah, it's something we alluded to in the agenda was maybe the membership wars that we're about to see in the coming months and years. So one thing that's been, you know, something that has potential to be a threat to Costco is Amazon and the Amazon Fresh program, which is being announced to be launching in Canada. So if we move to the next slide, we can have a little bit more discussion on that. But Amazon Fresh is something that when you think of the member bases we've covered, there's quite a similar penetration when it comes to member base with Amazon Prime and Costco. And I think really what you got to think about is what we've seen from Costco and Costco members and their conversion rate online with 25%, more than 25% using Instacart in the past 12 months. You have to start wondering what the conversion rate is going to look like on Amazon Fresh and how that might impact the overall grocery category.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the dynamics could just change with Amazon Fresh coming into the picture. And yeah, I think I would, I don't know, there's a lot of discussion that can go on, a lot of debate that can go on around this. Super interesting.
Two very consumer-centric companies, I would say, with two different and very effective approaches. I think we've seen Amazon really win on convenience and being able to be there for people in a very quick turnaround way. Whereas Costco, what I think we see is a more methodical company that's not afraid to watch and observe and take in data before executing, like we saw with the Instacart partnership, really.
Mm-hmm. Agree with you there. Okay.
So we definitely welcome any questions as well through the chat that we'll cover at the end around that. But to wrap things up, really the key takeaways from what we were able to observe so far is that value is a priority for shoppers, and winning at shelf at Costco is all about ROI. And ROI comes from brand awareness, it's brand recognition, it's making sure that me as a consumer, I'm able to buy the best brands and the best products at the best possible price. So standing out on shelf in Costco is everything, and you'll be rewarded by value-conscious shoppers. I think we've seen these with a lot of products that have even started in Costco in different categories and been able to grow out. So really interesting there. I think we've also seen is value converts, but quality creates loyalty. So it's great to get that first sale if it's value, but it's really the quality that's creating the repeat sales and that ongoing ROI for Costco. Third, what we're seeing as well is we expect an increase in spending at Costco post-pandemic based on the information we've collected thus far. What those purchases will be very interesting and something we'll definitely be looking into in the coming weeks through our daily survey. Fourth, really, is that Instacart is changing online shopping behaviors, and it's not alone. We see a lot of apps competing in different space in the delivery side that really is changing our behavior and shaping our behaviors, and most importantly, it's starting to dominate our share of wallet. And then lastly, really from a threat perspective, Amazon Fresh is something that we feel definitely does pose a threat to Costco and others. And it's something that we'll be tracking in our Amazon Prime tracker over the next couple of months also. Caddle will definitely be the first in terms of insight when we do see Amazon Fresh emerge in the Canadian market.
Absolutely. In fact, I am more than excited, and you know, I'm waiting for that time to come so that, you know, we could see how dynamics change. That will be interesting.
I can't wait to try it. I'm a member of both programs, so it'll be really interesting to have that comparison.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yep. So do we open the session for question and answers?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few people that have already sent their questions in. Thank you. If you haven't received a response, I'm just going to take a brief moment to go through them. There's quite a few in here. So we're going to stay on for about another 10 to 12 minutes and answer them for you guys, but let everyone go at 45 minutes past the hour. If we can't answer your question today because it is very data specific, someone will follow up with you directly. But there are quite a few questions about the Instacart Costco data, and we are going to be conducting more research specifically around Instacart and like services and getting a little bit more detailed in the data that we have there. The data that we ran today was specific to Costco, so certainly can share as much as we can with you. If we can't answer your question live, we will send a follow-up. As you can appreciate, it takes potentially pulling up research studies and digging into the data to get very, very specific with some of the questions here. But I'll just throw some of the general ones to the team. And yeah, thanks so much for participating. So one of the questions that was asked a couple of times here is how we defined value when it came to the Net Promoter. And the question that we asked consumers amongst all the other factors like cleanliness of store, ease of checkout, was to rank the retailers based on their value for money. So when we say value, we're specifically talking about, the value that they received for the dollars that they spent. There was another question, and maybe Mick, I'll throw this one to you, is have you seen in your data any barriers to using Instacart?
Oh, it's a really good question. Not that I can recall, but definitely something we can take offline to look into more on the barrier side. But generally, as part of our standard practice, we would always look at barriers. So if we want to arrange a follow-up, we can definitely dig into that.
Great. There was another question around how many Canadians are using Instacart, and we can follow up with you guys on that. Or included in our webinar follow-up. We do have some survey data based on our daily active panel, which, as you guys know, is the largest in the Canadian market. So we can take a look back. We will have surveyed at least 10,000 plus Canadians, and I can find out kind of what the rating was on people who use Instacart there. Another person asked about Instacart in regards to the amount of dollars being spent, just because they do charge a premium. If you guys haven't used Instacart before, you can use it as a Costco member, but the items vary from being, maybe $1 more for anything under $10 to $15, and sometimes $3 to $5 more for anything upwards of $30. So there is a premium, plus you also pay a fee. We haven't really gotten into the specifics of that. All of the receipt data that we shared today was actually captured from actual buyers who uploaded their receipts and sent them directly to us. So any of that receipt data was from 20,000 plus people that have participated over the last 18 months in surveys with us, and it's backed by actual purchasers. So we were analyzing those receipts to come up with average spends. In the Instacart data that we're digging into a bit more, that'll span more than just Costco. We'll definitely be asking about spend, and we can compare the spend when we do that back to this Costco data. So keep your eyes on your newsletter. There's another one. There's quite a few more here. Some more specifics about Instacart, which, as I mentioned, we don't have necessarily all the points. Someone asked here if Costco.ca products are all delivered to members via Instacart, and that answer is no. Costco does have their own online service. Instacart just kind of taps into Costco, but offers a little bit of a different approach in that you're not ordering online, you're ordering via Instacart, and someone is personally going and shopping for you and delivering the groceries to you. Another question here, sorry, I'm not throwing a lot of these to the team. Insight on when Amazon Fresh is coming to Canada. And Mick, I might pass that one your way. I think we hosted an Amazon webinar about 2 months ago now. Do you have any update on when Fresh is coming?
No updates. It's other than they will be launching in Canada, but no date has been confirmed.
Okay, yeah, we do have some really great Amazon data that might interest you guys. We did an Amazon member series report. So if anyone didn't receive that, you can either find it on our blog or send us a note, and we'd be happy to send it to you. I'm just going to throw up our contact details there if anybody's got questions that they want to send directly to us. Okay, there's a couple more. Let me just scan this question log. There's a few more questions coming in.
Also, I see a lot of interest around Instacart, so we can definitely come back to, people who have asked specific questions on Instacart. So a lot of questions around there, and a lot of, I think, a lot of people are seeking information around it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and we have surveys lined up for that, so hopefully we can share more information for you guys. We're doing a series on delivery wars, so you'll be seeing data soon in the next couple of months. But by all means, if there's stuff that we can provide to you now, we'll take a look back at these questions. I've got a detailed log of who asked what and try to get you as much information as we can. If you have any last questions, feel free to submit them now. And like I said, anything related to Instacart, we'll have to follow up with you on. Just one comment here. Someone on my data team said that based on the sample size that we went out to of the people that do use Instacart for Costco groceries, 87% were aware that there was a premium charged for shopping via that platform. There's another question here about insights around Gen Z specifically. Certainly we can dig into this data and look at Gen Z. We did do a really interesting profile of all the different demographics kind of midway through the last year of the pandemic, where we looked at different buying groups. We also just ran a study on the future of grocery shopping with Sylvain Charlevoix from Dalhousie, and it was featured at the Shopper Marketing Forum. And we were able to split out the data and show the differences in Gen Pop versus Gen Z. And there were some really astonishing insights there, including that 10% more Gen Zs are shopping online and also using self-checkout, which was really, really interesting. So I think Cherie asked that question. We can happily send you our Shopper Marketing Forum report with the Gen Z breakout. Someone also asked here if you can share if you're seeing prices rising by reviewing receipts. No, we didn't necessarily do any cross-tab comparison amongst prices. We just looked more so at total bill value and items. But certainly if you're interested in doing a study with us, that is a capability that we do have to dive into receipt data in more detail. Because someone was asking about the average cost of beef. We have a pretty robust meat survey that will be running in the Grocery Business magazine next month. So keep your eye out for that on the beef question. And that was asked by Doug. Someone asked Mick, are we surprised if 31% of Costco members are Gen Zers? Any insight into this, assuming that we thought that they may have lower spending power?
31% is Gen Zers. I think it was 31% is Gen Xers.
Want me to go back to the slide?
Can do, yeah.
Where were we on that one? It's quite a ways back, right?
Yep.
Tell me when.
You went past it.
Yeah, you passed it.
This one?
Next.
One more.
Yes.
Yeah, Gen X, 31% Gen X.
Mm-hmm.
I think Gen Z, that we can definitely look into that. There's always such an interesting topic, but you know, a Gen Z at a very different life stage. I don't think we're going to see those types of numbers for Gen Z membership.
There's some very specific questions coming in, and apologies if we can't answer them live. As I mentioned, like pulling up a survey file and filtering through all the different questions and demographic details is not really a live activity. So doing the best we can to answer as many things as we can, but certainly if we didn't get to your specific question, we will definitely do our follow-up. So just keep that in mind. Someone also asked here about the 29% shop fewer times, and they were asking if this is an average elapsed time between shops. What we looked at actually was a pre-pandemic and a current pandemic number, and we saw that trips reduced in the last 12 months versus the previous 12 months. So we were looking at like a comparative of pre-pandemic to current. And that's where we saw the fewer times shopping, but people were spending more with each trip. So the average spend actually went up. There's a few more here. One second here. Wow, you guys are active today. This is great. We didn't ask specifically about 2-day and Instacart, but I can definitely follow up with you, Adam. I know you've got a few questions there. Let me see if I've missed anything that we can answer live. Well, we have Mick and Sonia. No, just a lot of Instacart questions. Wow, definitely on the right track with providing you guys with more details on Instacart in the next month or so. We're going to be running some surveys on delivery wars, so we'll be sure to take all of these questions into account when we're designing the survey data. So keep your eye out for our next event, and hopefully we can answer a lot of those questions for you about Costco and all the other retailers, including how much people are spending and if they're spending more. If you've got any last questions, feel free to submit them now. Otherwise, we'll take this question log and try to get back to people where we didn't answer questions. And if you want to send us a personal email or book a meeting with us to talk more about the presentation or the details, feel free to do that at insights@caddle.ca.
I think on the Instacart side, one thing that's really been interesting though is when you read everything that's happening currently with retailers and how they're leveraging the platform, is it kind of sits right on that line between threat and opportunity. And you're seeing, you know, as like we kind of alluded to in the webinar, you've got a Costco who's leveraging it heavily and other retailers who are looking at it differently. So I think it's definitely a really interesting area of the grocery and as you said, the delivery war space, Camille.
Yeah, it's hard to cover, you know, everything because there's just so much going on right now, and that's why, you know, we've been focusing on a retailer by retailer perspective. But, you know, would love to hear input from you guys if you've got other areas that you think are interesting or that your either your customers, clients, or retailers are asking you about. So feel free to get in touch. We do have the largest daily active panel in the market, and we can turn around insights custom to you guys as well in as little as 72 hours. So feel free to reach out, and certainly any of our free reports that we're sharing and conducting for the market, we're happy to send to you. You'll get them automatically if you're signed up for our newsletter. So make sure you don't unsubscribe. Thanks again for everyone for joining. I'm going to stop as promised at 45 after the hour here. We had a record-breaking turnout for this, so thanks everyone for joining. Hope you found it useful, and we'll see you at the next event.
Thanks, Camille. Thanks, Sonia.